When an avoidant nervous system enters a relationship, love doesn't disappear, it becomes complicated. Because now safety isn't just about the self anymore. It's about navigating closeness, expectations, emotions, and attachment, all of which activate the avoidance system's deepest defenses. At the beginning of relationships, avoidant individuals often appear deeply present. They can be attentive, curious, engaging, romantic, consistent. Because early connection still contains distance. There's novelty, autonomy, and emotional control. But as the relationship deepens, as expectations form, the nervous system begins to register threat. And this is where the shift happens. As emotional closeness increases, the avoidant nervous system starts to feel watched, needed, depended on, emotionally responsible. Even healthy needs can feel like pressure, so the body reacts, pulling away emotionally, becoming less expressive, needing more space, becoming harder to reach. Not because love faded, but because intimacy activated survival responses. Inside the avoidant person, there is often overwhelm they can't explain, irritation without a clear cause, confusion about their own feelings, a strong urge to retreat. They may think, why do I feel trapped? Why do I need so much space? Why does this feel like too much? But the nervous system isn't asking logical questions. It's trying to restore regulation. This is where the real pain often lies, because the person loving someone with an avoidant nervous system experiences a very different reality. They experience sudden emotional distance, inconsistency, confusion, mixed signals. One moment, connection feels deep and meaningful. The next, it feels like they're reaching for someone who is no longer there. For the partner, this can feel like emotional whiplash. They may think, what did I do wrong? Why did they change? Why do I feel like I'm too much? And often, without meaning to, they begin to internalize the withdrawal. They start questioning their worth, their needs, their expectations. Avoidant withdrawal sends an unspoken message, even if it's unintentional. Your needs overwhelm me. Your closeness makes me uncomfortable. Your emotions are too much. And for the person on the receiving end, that message can be devastating, especially if they are emotionally open, empathetic, or anxiously attached. As the avoidant partner pulls away, the other partner often moves closer, not to control, but to restore connection. They may ask for reassurance, try to communicate more, seek clarity, try harder. But this increase in closeness further activates the avoidant nervous system, and a painful cycle forms. This creates the classic push-pull dynamic. One partner seeks closeness for safety, the other seeks distance for safety. Both are trying to regulate their nervous systems, but in opposite ways. Neither person is wrong, but both end up hurting. Avoidant individuals often don't realize the impact of their withdrawal. They may believe, I just need space. This is normal. I'm being honest about my needs. But to the person they love, space doesn't feel neutral. It feels like rejection, abandonment, emotional neglect. Even when love is still present. After conflict or withdrawal, repair requires emotional presence. But repair itself can feel threatening to an avoidant nervous system because it involves acknowledging emotions, sitting with discomfort, reconnecting after distance. So instead of repair, avoidance may look like acting as if nothing happened, minimizing the issue, shifting focus away from emotions, which leaves the other partner feeling unseen and unresolved. They may feel emotionally disconnected, unsupported, like they're loving alone. Not because love isn't there, but because emotional access is limited. This is critical to understand. Avoidant individuals do not love less. They love with more defenses. Their nervous system restricts emotional expression, not emotional capacity. But love without access still hurts. Over time, the partner may shrink themselves. They stop asking, stop expressing needs, stop sharing feelings. Not because their needs disappeared, but because they learn those needs create distance. And slowly, the relationship becomes emotionally one-sided. Eventually, something breaks. Either the partner becomes resentful, emotionally exhausted, or begins to disconnect themselves. And often, this is when the avoidant partner finally feels the loss because distance has become permanent, not chosen, which leads us to an uncomfortable truth. Avoidant nervous systems often recognize what they had after it's gone when the threat of closeness is replaced by the pain of absence. And that opens the door to a deeper question whether avoidance protects the heart or slowly starves it, and what it actually takes for an avoidant nervous system to learn how to stay present without feeling unsafe. One of the most painful ironies of avoidance in relationships is this. The avoidant nervous system often feels safest after distance has been created, but feels the deepest grief once the connection is no longer available. When the partner finally stops reaching, stops explaining, stops trying, that absence removes pressure, but it also removes attachment. And in that quiet space, emotions that were held back begin to surface. Avoidant nervous systems often process emotions after the threat is gone. While the relationship was active, feelings were suppressed in order to stay regulated. But once the bond is broken, the nervous system no longer has to defend against closeness. That's when memories return. That's when longing appears. That's when the loss becomes real. Not because love suddenly appeared, but because the defenses finally relaxed. For the partner who is asking for connection, this timing can feel devastating. They may wonder why the love shows up now, why there was silence when they were still present, why the realization came only after they learned how to survive without it. And for the avoidant partner, there is often a mix of regret and confusion. They may feel sadness they don't know how to express, shame for not showing up earlier, and a pull toward reconnection that is immediately followed by fear of repeating the same cycle. Another core issue in avoidant relationships is emotional responsibility. Many avoidant nervous systems learned early that emotions are private, needs are individual, and each person is responsible for managing their own internal world. So when a partner expresses emotional pain, it can feel like blame even when it isn't. Instead of hearing, I want to feel closer to you, the nervous system hears, you are failing, you are being demanded of, you are about to lose your autonomy, and so the walls go up. This is why communication alone doesn't fix avoidant dynamics. Avoidance is not a communication problem, it's a regulation problem. You can explain your needs clearly, calmly, lovingly, and still trigger withdrawal, because no amount of logic can override a body that feels unsafe. Over time, the partner loving an avoidant nervous system often begins to change. They may become quieter, more cautious, more aware of shifts in mood. They may start walking on eggshells, managing the emotional climate of the relationship, not because they want control, but because connection has become fragile. Eventually, love starts to feel conditional. The partner learns an unspoken rule. I can be loved as long as I don't need too much. So they edit themselves. They ask less. They feel less. They become more independent than they actually are. And resentment begins to grow, quietly, slowly. Avoidant nervous systems are trying to prevent pain, but in doing so, they often create it. By avoiding emotional engagement, trust erodes, intimacy weakens, and the relationship becomes unstable. Eventually, the partner stops reaching, not to punish, but to protect themselves. And the avoidant partner is left with something they feared least in the moment, but most in the long term: emotional separation. Avoidant individuals often feel misunderstood in this space. They may think they never said they didn't care, that they were simply asking for space, that their needs weren't respected. What they often don't realize is that space without reassurance feels like abandonment to the person they love. Both people are trying to feel safe. They're just speaking different nervous system languages. Most partners aren't asking for constant closeness. They're asking for emotional presence, for repair after distance, for reassurance that the bond still exists. But presence is exactly what the avoidant nervous system struggles to sustain, not because of lack of love, but because presence feels exposing. There is often a quiet moment when the avoidant partner realizes something painful but important. They weren't being asked to lose themselves. They were being asked to stay, and staying felt unsafe. That realization changes the question. It moves away from, why am I like this? Or, why are they so demanding? and towards something deeper. What does my nervous system need in order to feel safe in connection, not away from it? And once that question is asked honestly, the path forward begins to look different. Because healing avoidance is not about forcing intimacy, it's about learning how to remain regulated while staying emotionally present. And that opens the door to the most difficult and most hopeful part of this conversation: how avoidant nervous systems actually begin to change, what safe love looks like for them, and whether a relationship can survive the transition from distance-based safety to connection-based safety. Distance feels safe to the avoidant nervous system because at some point, closeness did not. Space became protection, independence became regulation, and withdrawal became a way to survive emotional overwhelm. But relationships are not sustained by distance alone. They are sustained by safety that can exist with another person present. For the avoidant partner, healing does not mean losing autonomy, identity, or self-protection. It means slowly teaching the nervous system that closeness does not have to equal danger, that connection can exist without collapse, and that staying does not mean being trapped. And for the person who loves someone with an avoidant nervous system, understanding the pattern does not mean tolerating emotional absence or abandoning your own needs. Compassion should never require self-erasure. Love is not meant to be proven by how little you ask for. This dynamic is not about one person being broken and the other being too much. It is about two nervous systems trying to feel safe in opposite ways and learning, if both are willing, how to meet in the middle. Because true intimacy isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to stay present even when fear arises. And when safety is built not through distance, but through consistency, repair, and emotional presence, the nervous system begins to learn something new, that love does not have to be survived, it can be experienced.